Welcome to LIVEDAF, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Chafei. We're on the second line from the top. Says the Gemara, B'Yom Tov U'da Aser. So the Mishnah taught us that on Yom Tov one may not use shem and oil of truma tmeya. One may not put it into his lamp and light it on Yom Tov, because on Yom Tov one may not burn truma that is tamei, just as one may not burn kachim that are pasul on Yom Tov. The Gemara gave us 4 reasons, 4 sources for this halach. Says the Gemara, B'Yom Tov U'da Aser. Apparently this is only an Isser on Yom Tov. Ha b'choil, but on an ordinary weekday, shapir dami, this is perfectly acceptable. One may indeed use oil of truma tmeya and put it into his lamp and light it and enjoy the illumination of the truma that is burning. One may take the truma and use it as fuel under his cooking pot. Says the Gemara, my timer, why is this so? How do we know that one may have a na while burning the truma tmeya? Says Tosfos, what do you mean? Why should I think otherwise? Why would I think that it's usher to have a na from the burning truma? And says Tosfos, because we find that truma is connected to bikurim, and bikurim is connected to ma'aser sheni. And just like we find that there's an isser to consume ma'aser sheni, which is tamei, the Gemara at this point figures that perhaps this isser will apply to truma as well. Therefore, the Gemara is looking for a reason. What is the source to allow having a na while burning your truma? My time, says the Gemara, Amarav, Keshem shemitzvah lisrif. Ha kachim shenitmu, just as there is a mitzvah, the Torah commands us to burn kachim that became tamei. Kach, in the same token, mitzvah lisrif as truma shenitmus. There's also a mitzvah to burn truma that became tamei. Says Rashi, why? The dami l'kodesh, because truma is compared to kachim. V'oid, another reason, says Rashi, mishum takala. No, to avoid pitfall, to avoid transgression. If the truma is left around, perhaps somebody will go eat it. Therefore, one must burn it. Says Tosfos, apparently from these last words of Rashi, mishum takala, the point of burning it is to avoid pitfall. It appears that sreifa, burning, specifically burning, is not required. Any means, any way of destroying the truma is acceptable, because the point is to avoid takala. And in fact, Rashi himself states this very clearly in Psachim, where he says that it gives an example of, for instance, feeding the truma tmeya to a dog. So sreifa specifically is not required. And Tosfos disagrees with Rashi. Tosfos has a Mishnah in the end of Tmura which lists truma tmeya as one of those items that requires sreifa specifically. Indeed, Tosfos concludes that sreifa is required. And Tosfos gives 2 reasons. Either it's a din d'Rabbanan, because truma is doimel l'kodesh, is compared to kachim, or, says Tosfos, indeed it's a chiv d'oraisa, because truma is called kodesh. We find at least twice in Chumash where the Torah refers to truma with the term kodesh. Therefore, we apply the same din of kachim sulim to truma tmei as well, and streifa is required. So we have 3 approaches here. Either the din streifa is a chiv d'oraisa, or it's a chiv d'Rabbanan, or merely to avoid takala, to avoid pitfall. Says Rav Yosef Engel in the Sefer Gliyoni Ashas. Now Rashi gives us 2 reasons: the dami l'kodesh and mishum takala. We must burn it because either it's compared to kachim and has the same din as kachim, or simply to avoid pitfall. So what is the nafkamina, the halachic difference between these 2 reasons? Says the Gliyoni Ashas, the nafkamina will be regarding a bracha. Is a bracha recited while burning the truma? So according to the first pshat in Rashi, that the chiv streifa is because the truma is compared to kachim. So the ma'aser streifa, the act of burning, is considered to be a bona fide mitzvah, an act of a mitzvah, and therefore certainly a bracha will be said. However, according to the second pshat in Rashi, that burning the truma is merely, it's a means of avoiding transgression, to avoid takala. You can't leave it around lest somebody go ahead and eat it. In this case, says Gliyoni Hashas, burning it is not considered to be be'etzem amasa mitzvah. The mitzvah is to do something to avoid the transgression. But this specific act is not considered to be a be'etzem amasa mitzvah, and therefore a bracha will not be said by burning the truma. Continues the Gemara. So once again, just as there's a mitzvah to burn kachim that are pasul, there's a mitzvah to burn truma that's tamei. Continues the Gemara. V'amr Torah, and the Torah specifically told us B'sh'as bi'ura tihane mimena. While you burn, while you destroy the truma, you may indeed derive pleasure and enough from it. Heichen Amar Torah. Where does the Torah tell us this? Says Gemara, we have three sources. Number one, Midar Rav Nachman, the Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravo. Amar, the Torah says, Va'ani, Torah is speaking to Aaron HaKohen, I have given you, Hinei nasati l'cha es mishmeres trumoisai, the watching of my trumos. Now, trumoisai is a plural term. It's a lashon rabim. It denotes more than simply one type of truma. So, which two trumos is the pasuk referring to? B'shtei trumos hakasam madaber. Achas truma tahira, v'achas truma tmeya. The Torah is telling Aaron HaKohen, I've given you to watch two types of trumos. Truma tahira and truma tmeya. And the pasuk goes ahead and says, Hinei nasati lecha, I've given them to you. V'amar achmana, the Torah says lecha. And the Torah implies with the word lecha that you may enjoy both of them. Shalchatei la'asika tachasav shilcha. Not only truma tahira is for you and your benefit, truma tmeya as well is meant for your ana and your benefit. How? Shalchatei, it will be yours la'asika tachasav shilcha, to use it as fuel under your pot. So it's very clear that truma tmeya, while being burnt, can provide hana and pleasure. So this indeed is a source for this concept that one may indeed have hana while burning the truma tmeya. If you will, I'll give you another teretz, another source of this halach. So one declares by the vidui meiser, he says, I haven't consumed, I haven't used the meiser sheni b'tamei, when there was tumah, either when I was tamei or when the meiser sheni was tamei. So one may not consume meiser sheni that's tamei. The Torah puts the word mimenu in this pasuk to imply that this iser applies specifically to meiser sheni. But there's something else. There's another type of thing that over there this iser will not apply to. Mimenu yatamavir. From meiser sheni, you may not consume, you may not enjoy it and consume it while it is tamei. But you may consume and derive pleasure and benefit from shemen of truma that became tamei. So this is the makar to allow having anah while burning truma tmeya. Says the Gemara, how do you know that Mimenu is coming to exclude the truma tmeya and to provide allowance for burning and having anah from truma tmeya? Perhaps I can say Mimenu etamaver, aval tamaver shemen shel kodesh enitma. That the pasuk of Mimenu was not excluding truma from this prohibition, but rather excluding shemen of kodesh, for instance, shemen of a mincha that became tamei. That you may burn and derive pleasure while it's burning. However, truma is not allowed. Says more, you can't even propose that. Why? Lav kavachaymu. Regarding shemen of kodesh, we can derive from a kavachaymer that apparently there's no allowance to derive pleasure and benefit while burning it. Why? Ma ma'aser akal. If we find that masa, which is a lower level of kedusha, it's a more lenient item. It is mutter for ordinary people, for zarim. So even so, the Torah tells us, Amar Torah lo bi'atim menu b'tamei, that ma'aser sheni may not be consumed while it's tamei. So if we find that this stringency applies to ma'aser sheni, which is on a lower level of kedusha, certainly kodesh chamer like koshkein, kodesh which is contains a much greater, much higher level of kedusha, it's more stringent than ma'aser, and certainly this prohibition applies there as well. So you can't say that the Torah is excluding kachim from this iser, and the Torah allows one to derive hana while burning the kachim. You can't say that. If this iser applies to ma'aser, certainly kachim. So apparently the Mimenu is coming to exclude truma. Says in 1 second, if so, truma nahami le'mekavachaymu. Regarding truma as well, let us apply this kavachaymu and say, well, apparently if ma'aser, which is kal, which is more lenient, cannot be consumed with truma, certainly truma, which is mochamer, it cannot be eaten by a non-kohen. Certainly, it is aser. You can't apply the allowance of truma as well. Says Gemara, "V'ksiv mimenu The pasuk says, "Mimenu," you can't consume Ma'aser Sheni b'tumah, but something else can be consumed b'tumah. Apparently, it's referring to truma. Says Gemara, "Ma rois." Why do you choose to go in this direction? Why do you opt to apply the exception and the allowance to truma as opposed to kachim? The word mimenu does not denote anything. It's a very general term. It's coming to exclude something. How do you know to apply this exception to truma and not to kachim? Says Ram B'Staver, it is logical that kodesh loy ma'itna. That kodesh is not excluded from this issur. Why? Because we find that kodesh contains many stringencies. Shekain, because in kodesh we find the following chumras, which are hinted in the following Rashi Tevis, Siman, Panak, Akas. So this contains 6 items of chumrah, of stringency, that are exclusive to kachim and not found in truma. What are these things? 6 things. Pigol, number 2 noisa, number 3 carbon, number 4 me'ila, number 5 kares, and finally asal oinen. So kachim have the halach of pigol. Pigol is if during the process of the krav, of the avodas carbon, one has the intention to either eat the carbon or bring it onto the mizbeach past the allotted time. So the carbon becomes pigol, and one who eats from this carbon, even during the allotted time, there's kares. Number 2, noisar, if kachim were left over beyond the allotted time, beyond the prescribed time, it becomes noisar, one who eats it is kares. A kachim is called carbon because it's brought on the mizbeach. Kachim contain the halach of me'ila. So if one derives inappropriate pleasure from the carbon, he needs to bring a carbon me'ila. The kares, and one who eats a carbon when he is tummy, he incurs the einish of kares, which contains 2 elements, a shortening of days, and he'll be childless. And finally, asal einain, kachim, a carbon is asr to an einain, one who has experienced the death of a close relative, so up until the burial is considered to be an einain. So these are halachis, these are concepts that are exclusively applicable to kachim and not to truma. So since we find that kachim contain all these stringencies, it is logical to say that it's on a higher plane, and it does not have the allowance to be consumed when it is tummy. Rather, we will apply this exception, this allowance, to truma. Says in 1 second. Let's take a look at the other side of the coin. Adrab, just the opposite. Truma loy ma'itna. Truma can't be excluded from this issur. We can't put the allowance of being invired b'tuma onto truma, since by truma as well we find many chumras. Shekein machpaz siman, because truma contains many elements of stringency that are exclusive to truma, not found by kachim. For instance, so machpaz is the Rashi Tevis of misa and chomesh and a lapidyon and asur lazarim. So misa means that if a zar, a non-kohen, eats truma, he is liable to death. Misa b'dei shamayim. So this is unique to truma. The kachim, at least some types of karbanos, can be eaten by a non-kohen, by a zar. So this is a stringency exclusive to truma. Chomesh, one who inadvertently eats truma, he must repay by adding another 5th. So although it's permitted, it's something which is permitted to a kohen, nevertheless if a zar eats it, he needs to add a chomesh. This is something exclusive to truma. The kachim that are mutter to kohen, there's no din chomesh there if a zar eats it. So this is a concept exclusive to truma. Number 3, ein lapidyon. Truma has no possibility of redemption. There's no option to go be moitzi lechulin, to go redeem it and have the truma turn into chulin. Kachim do have the concept of pidyon. For instance, if the carbon got blemished prior to shchita, you are paided and goes out lechulin. And finally, vasula zar, truma is asur for a stranger, for a non-kohen. But kachim, at least some karbanos, like Maser Behema, Toid and Shlama, eaten by anybody, even by Yisrael. So here we find stringencies and concepts that are exclusive to Truma. So why are you applying the allowance? This heter of allowing one to have derived pleasure and benefit while consuming the Truma Tmeya, while burning the Truma Tmeya, why do you apply that to Truma and not to Kachim? Says the Gemara, at the end of the day, if we take account, Hanach Nefisha, the amount of chumras and stringency found exclusively by kachim over truma are more in number. There are 6 in total, And there are more than the chumras that we find by truma, which are merely for. Therefore, as a result of that, we assume that kachim attain a higher status. And when we have a choice, which one to apply the heter to, this heter mentioned earlier of burning it and deriving pleasure and not while burning it, which one should we apply this heter to? We're going to prefer applying the heter disallowance to truma, which seems to be more lenient than kachim. Or another option, kodesh chamer. Kodesh seems to be more stringent. Why? Shekain onish karis, because there's an einish of karis when one eats the karbanis v'tumah, and this is way more stringent than the misa incurred by one who eats the zar, who eats the truma, or the kayin who eats the truma when he's tamei, which is merely misi b'dei shemayim. A karis is way more stringent, Rashi says, because karis contains two elements: shortening of days, and also he'll be childless. Misi b'dei shemayim is merely shortening of days. So apparently this factor, the Gemara deems to be an overriding factor. Since kachim has this very stringent penalty of karis, apparently it's way more stringent than truma, and therefore we apply the allowance, the heter, to truma, which seems to be more lenient than kachim. So this is the second marker, the source, that allows us to have anah while burning truma tmeya. What is the third source? Rav Nachman Ritzl Kamar. Amakra, titan loy, the Torah instructs us to give the truma to the kayin, and the pasuk uses the term loy. The Gemara makes a drasha. Loy? He meant to give it to him for his own personal use, to consume in a very direct way, to eat it. You must give him truma to hoira, but one may not give a kayin truma tmeya. Loy, give it to him directly so he can enjoy it. V'loy la'oira, don't give him truma tmeya, which he can't really have a direct hana. He must use it indirectly. He'll have to put it into his fire. He'll have to use it as fuel. So the Torah once again is teaching us that we must give a kayin truma tahira, but not truma tmeya, which is merely used for his fire. Concludes the Gemara, Mechlal. Apparently, it's obvious from this pasuk that the bas oirahi, that truma tmeya, is fit to be used as fuel, is fit to be burned, is fit to have pleasure derived from it while burning it. The Torah is telling us, give him truma tahira, which he can have a very direct pleasure from. He can eat it. Don't give him truma tmeya, which really gives him a side benefit, a very minor hana of using it as fuel. So apparently, the kayin can use it for his fuel. So this indeed is a raya that one may have hana while burning truma tmeya. Ask Tosfos Akasha, how do we see from here that one may have hana while burning truma tmeya? Maybe the pasuk is saying very simply, give him truma tahira, which is useful. Don't give him truma tmeya, which is totally useless, because he cannot use it as fuel. Says Tosfos, if the Torah is merely telling us that, then the pasuk should simply say, Titain, give it to him, grant it to him, a gift, a matana, evidently has some value, some minimal value. It's not considered to be a matana unless it's shava pruta. So if the Torah is simply telling us, give him truma tahira, which is useful, and don't give him truma tmeya, which is totally useless, then the Torah should simply state tita and give him, which implies you must give him something of value, which is truma tahira. The fact that the Torah adds the words tita and loy, the word loy is coming to teach us that even truma tmeya has some value to it. It is included in the concept of nesina, of granting, of gifting, because it has some value to it. But since it doesn't provide the same amount of hana, the same amount of direct pleasure, because it can only be used as fuel, therefore the Torah is telling us, give him truma tahira, which is loy, which is a direct pleasure, but not truma tmeya, which you can only use while burning, while consuming, as fuel in the fire. So indeed this is a raya, that one may indeed have hana, pleasure, while burning the truma tmeya. So in summary, we learned the halacha that one may have hana while burning the truma tmeya. We have three makoros, three sources. Number one, the Torah tells Aaron HaKohen, Hine sati l'chos mishmer trumaisai. Trumaisai is a double lashon. There are two trumais implied. Even Truma Tmeya is Nasati Lecha, I've given to you, I've granted to you. You could derive pleasure from it by using it as fuel, Asika, Tachas, Tavshilcha. Or, we learn from the Pasuk that is stated by Maser Sheni, I've not consumed Maser Sheni when it was Tameh. And the word Mimenu is a diak to tell us that this Isser, this prohibition, does not apply elsewhere. It doesn't apply by Truma. One may indeed consume Truma Tmeya, he may derive pleasure from it while burning it. And finally, from the pasuk of Titan Loi, you must give the Kohen Truma which is Torah, which he can have a direct hana from, he can eat it. But don't give him Truma Tmeya which is merely used La'irei for his fire. So apparently, even Truma Tmeya can provide the Kohen with some pleasure. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel Eimer. So getting back to Ner Shabbos, Rabbi Shmuel maintains that one may not use this thing called itron, this byproduct of pitch, as fuel in his Ner Shabbos. Says, well, my time, what's wrong with it? Since it emits a foul odor, Gzera, the Chacham made a decree, they were concerned that he's going to abandon his candle and leave the room. What's the big deal? Okay, let him leave the room. So Rabbi responded, because I maintain that that kindling the Ner Shabbos in the place of his meal is a chayva, is mandatory. Explains Rashi, because one is meant to conduct his Suda Shabbos in an illuminated room. This is a kavod Shabbos. Rashi says, she'ein Suda chashuva. In order to have a Suda of prominence, of significance, it is only b'makayim in a place of illumination. As he brings the Gemara in Yuma, that a person enjoys his food better, it enhances the mealtime experience when it's done in a lit room. Tosfos uses the word oynek Shabbos. It provides a delight of Shabbos. So one needs to have the Ner Shabbos in the place of a Suda. So if he uses this foul smelling material, which will chase him out of the room, he's going to end up eating in the darkness. And therefore, one may not use this material. Continues the Gemara. To Omar, Rav Nachman bar Rav Zavda. V'amrilo, some say it was Rav Nachman bar Rav, Omar Rav. Ha'adlokas ner b'Shabbos chayva. It's mandatory, it's an obligation to have the Ner Shabbos. And according to Rav's interpretation, it means that it needs to be in the place of a Suda. Now Tosfos brings down an interesting Shita, who suggested that since the Gemara uses the term chayva, it's mandatory, it's an obligation, then there's no bracha recited by Ner Shabbos. Just as we find, the Gemara tells us in Chulin, that regarding Mayim Achronim, when we wash our hands at the end of the meal, it is called chayva, it's mandatory. And therefore, the Gemara says, there's no bracha there. Because something which is chayva doesn't have a bracha. So some want to suggest the same thing by Ner Shabbos. There's no bracha. Says Rabbeinu Tam, this is a grave mistake. That there's a big difference between Hadlakas Ner Shabbos and Mayim Achronim. Indeed, the term chayva is used in both contexts, but it's totally separate and different. Because Mayim Achronim is merely to address the concern of danger of sakana. The Gemara says there's a certain type of melach, of salt, melach stoimitz, which can harm a person's eyes. So, the Chachamim instituted the Mayim Achronim. So since it's merely coming to prevent from sakana, it's a chayv, it's obligatory, but it's meant to address a concern of sakana. Therefore, there's no bracha there, because it's merely coming to eliminate danger. However, Ner Shabbos, although we use the term chayva, but certainly it's a mitzvah, like everything else, and certainly a bracha is recited upon lighting Ner Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. So what else is on this list? Hadlakas Ner B'Shabbos is chayva. Rechitzas yadayim raglayim b'chamin arbis rishus. Washing one's hands and feet with hot water close to Shabbos is rishus, is optional. It's not a chayva. Concludes the Gemara V'ani Omer. So Rabbah says no, mitzvah. Washing hands and feet before Shabbos is a mitzvah. It's not merely optional. My mitzvah, where is this mitzvah sourced? Says the Gemara, because we find that our elders in the previous generations conduct themselves in this manner, and us too, we're meant to follow in their footsteps. As we find the Omar Rav Yudah Marav. Erev Shabbos, so this was the custom of Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. Erev Shabbos, they would bring him a tub full of hot water. He would wash his face, hands and feet. The Aruch HaShulchan points out that Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi had a medical condition which prevented him from entering the bathhouse, so he would wash himself in this manner. And what else would he do? Following the rechitza or misatef, he would wrap himself v'yeshev b'sadinim. He would wrap himself with sheets of pishtan, of flax, hamatziyatzin, that were fringed, that contained tzitzis. What type of tzitzis? He would hang on these linen sheets tzitzis made from wool, strings of tzemer. Now, ordinarily, a mixture of wool and linen is asur, it's kilayim. Explains Rashi, we find that the Torah specifically permitted kilayim by tzitzis. As the Torah tells us, leisilba shatnis, one may not wear the mixture of wool and linen. And the Torah proceeds by saying, gdilim, fringes, tassel, you should make for yourself. We imply from here that the Torah specifically allows the concept of shanis, mixing wool and linen with regard to the mitzvah of tzitzis. Therefore, he conducted himself accordingly. He would hang strings of tzemer, of wool, on the sadin shal pishtan, although it was kalayim, since it was tzitzis. And the Gemara proceeds, v'doime l'malach Hashem tzvaka, so you sit there appearing like a malach, anticipating the onset of Shabbos. However, his students conducted themselves a little differently. They avoided this kalayim issue. On their sadinim, on their linen sheets, instead of hanging tzitzis of tzemer, of wool, they preferred the tzitzis made of linen. So they would hang the strings of pishtan on their sadin shal pishtan to avoid kilayim. And therefore they concealed the corners of their clothing. They didn't want him to notice that they were conducting themselves differently than him. They would hide from him, convict susan, the corners of their garments. Amar lehem, so he turned to them and he said, Banai, my sons, didn't I already teach you that this is permitted? Kilayim by tzitzis is mutter. As we find the machlokes in this regard between Sham and Misil. Sadin and tzitzis. What is the halacha regarding a sadin of linen, a sheet of linen? Can one hang on the linen wool tzitzis? Beishamai poiter. Beishamai say it's potter, since Beishamai say that there's no heter of kalayim by tzitzis. Therefore, this potter from tzitzis, if the tzitzis is semer, ubesil mechayiv, mesil obligate, even if he's going to put strings of wool onto his linen sheet. Why? Because it's going to be a hillel. We learned this drasha that kalayim doesn't apply to the mitzvah of tzitzis. And that's the halacha we follow, we rule according to Beis Hillel. So this is perfectly permitted. Why do you avoid putting the tzemer on the pishtan? The Inu, says the Gemara, they indeed knew that halacha is like Beis Hillel. However, nevertheless, they were concerned about a gzeira. Inu Sarva, they figure, they hold gzeira mishum ksus laila. Although halachically this is permitted, one may indeed hang tzitzis of tzemer even onto a linen beget. However, they were concerned that perhaps if this would be done, perhaps one would transgress the Isser Kalayim, because we know that the mitzvah tzitzis is only applicable to a ksus yoim, a garment which is worn by day. But if it's a garment is exclusively worn at night, in that case, there's no mitzvah tzitzis. We learn this from the pasuk of Re'isem Oisai. The pasuk says you must see the tzitzis, which is, this pasuk is in the parsha of tzitzis. So we learn from there that tzitzis does not apply to a beged which is designated for exclusively night use. Therefore, the Talmidim figured, let's avoid creating a situation of kalayim. Perhaps one is going to use kalayim even by a beged which is designated exclusively for night use. In that case, the beged doesn't require tzitzis. In that case, if one would have wool strings, wool tzitzis on that beged of pishtan, which is a ksus laila, he would be transgressing the isser of kalayim. Therefore, they figured, let's avoid using kalayim by tzitzis altogether. Continues the Gemara, Vatiznach mishol nafshi. So this pasuk is an eicha describing the deprived state that Klal Yisrael was situated in after the Churban. The pasuk says, "Vatiznach mishal nafshi." So my nefesh, my soul, despaired of peace, from peace. No, Shisi Toiva forgot goodness. Mai vatiznach mishalom nafshi. So what does this mean? And the spirit from Shalom, Amar Avos who had lochas ner b'Shabbos. They didn't even have enough funds to obtain material to light the Ner Shabbos. And the Ner Shabbos brings peace, brings Shalom, and enhances the peace and harmony in the home, so that one avoids stumbling and tripping over unforeseen items in the darkness. So Ner Shabbos brings peace. So in summary, we find that Ner Shabbos represents three concepts. We learned before that Ner Shabbos is meant to be present during the Suda Shabbos because it provides kavod Shabbos. It's a mark of honor for Shabbos. It also adds to koinik Shabbos, the delight of Shabbos, when we eat our Suda in a lit room. And finally, we just learned that Ner Shabbos also enhances the peace and harmony in the home. So getting back to this pasuk describing the sorry state of Klal Yisrael after the Churban, the pasuk says, "Vatiznach mishalom nafshi," and continues with the words, "Nashisi toiva." I've forgotten all about goodness. Says the Gemara, what is this toiva? What is this goodness being referenced here? Nashisi toiva Amar Yirmiyah zu beis hamerchatz. It's referring to bathing oneself in the bathhouse. Amar Yochanan, no, it can't be referring to that which is considered to be a basic necessity, but rather this toiva, this goodness, refers to a higher state of some higher form of sublime goodness. Washing one's hands and feet with hot water, which is considered to be a higher measure of goodness, which provides an added measure of comfort and convenience. It's having a nice bed, nice bedspreads on it. Having a spread bed, and an adorned wife, which is fitting and suitable for Tamid Chacham. The Maharal explains that the term Isha Mekushetes here is referring to a wife who is adorned with midas tovos, positive character traits, and good deeds, which that indeed is a spiritual delight. Continues the Gemara, Tanur Rabbanan, we learned in the Bryce. Ezo Asher, who is truly regarded as an Asher, as a wealthy man? Kol sheyesh nachas ruach ba'ashroi, one who has contentment, who is satisfied with his lot, whether he has much or little. He's samech b'chalkoi, and he indeed has reached this plateau. He is truly considered to be an Asher. Divei Rab Meir. Continues the Gemara, and as the Mashal explains, the Gemara will provide another three angles, another three responses to this question of Ezo Asher, who is considered to be a wealthy man. Explains the Mashal. Generally speaking, there are three motivating factors that propel a person to attain and achieve wealth. One, in order to attain stature, kavod, honor, and respect among society, to be considered a wealthy man. This is for the purpose of kavod and honor. So this is the first factor. Number two, says the Maharsha, in order to provide generously for one's wife. Thirdly, in order to put away some money, which he might need if he falls ill. Says the Maharsha, we're going to address all three of these interests and point out how futile they are, and one should not pursue them. Number one is Rabbi Tarfon Omer. He's responding to the question of Ezo Asher, and he is referring to the first factor of a person who is looking to attain wealth in order to gain respect in the eyes of society. Says Rav Tarfon, you'll never get there. Says Rav Tarfon, Ezo Asher, who's considered to be an Asher? Kol sheyesh li kuf kramim, he has 100 vineyards, or he has sades, 100 fields, v'kuf avodim, she'odim hem 100 laborers that are toiling and working in these properties. So Rav Tarfon is purposely describing this exaggerated scene to drive home the point that you'll never get there. You'll never truly consider yourself on a high enough level as being regarded as this wealthy man in society. So you'll never think that you've reached that point and attained the proper respect and status among society. So this is an effort of futility. Don't bother pursuing it. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Kol sheyesh le'isha b'masim. Who is an Asher? One who has an Isha, beautiful wife, who has beautiful masim, beautiful deeds. So this is a reference to the second factor. Why is he pursuing wealth? In order to provide generously for his wife. Says the Gemara, the opposite is true. His wife should suffice with little. He's meant to conduct his life and influence his family to suffice with less, to be non-b'masim, to suffice with less material possessions, and therefore he won't need to pursue wealth. Thirdly, says the Gemara, he's putting away money for future situation where he might need it if he falls ill. Rabbi Yossi Omer, who is an usher, called sheyesh lo bais hakisa shulchana, he has a bais hakisa close to his table, which allows him to relieve himself prior and after to his meal, which is the appropriate time for that. So the message here is, instead of putting away wealth for a time of illness, better protect your health, maintain your health, conduct your life in a manner where you'll be healthy and strong and you won't need to have that money when you fall ill. So in conclusion, who is an usher? We have three answers, Sameach B'chalkai, and the Gemara adds many lessons to drive home the point that one should not pursue ashirus, but rather be content with his health, with his wealth, be Sameach B'chalkai. Let's take a quick review of today's block. We began with the halacha of burning Truma Tmeya. It's a mitzvah to burn Truma Tmeya, whether it's a mitzvah minat Torah, or midrabanan, or simply to avoid takal and pitfall. So when one goes ahead and burns that Truma Tmeya, he may have a hana, derive pleasure and benefit during that time. We have three sources for this concept. Number one, the pasuk says, "Hine nasati lecha," I've given to you Aron HaKohen, I've given to you even Truma Tmeya, to place as fuel underneath your pot. We have a pasuk by Ma'aseh Sheni which says, I haven't consumed it when it was tamei. The pasuk says, "Mimenu," to exclude Truma Tmeya, which may be consumed when it's tamei. And finally, the pasuk says, "Titen loi," you must give the kohen Truma Tahira for his direct hana and pleasure, that he can eat it. You're not meant to give him Truma Tmeya, which he's going to use as fuel under his pot. The Gemara proceeded regarding the mitzvah ner Shabbos, that it is a chayva, it is mandatory to have it present during one's meal. Why? Because ner Shabbos is meant to provide oineg, kavod, and this is specifically when one has a Suda Shabbos in an illuminated room. It's a mark of honor according to Rashi. It adds oineg, delight, according to Tosfos. And as the Gemara later said, it also adds a measure of peace and harmony in the home. The Gemara concluded with the concept of Eza Asher, who is considered to be a truly wealthy man, Kol Sheish L'Nachas Ruach Ba'ashroi. And as Rashi says, this is referring to the concept of Sameach B'chalko. He's content and happy with his lot, whatever it is.